I know positionally that I am a son, that I am loved, and that I am completely accepted for who I am and who I've been made to be. So I know every day when I start out, I am already whole. When I look into the face of Jesus, when I talk to him, when I get to know him through his word, through the Bible, I know that I'm already made complete and that he is the thing that gives me the source of life, that all these other things are not a source of life. I am already the most that I can be in my being. And these other things it's like having an ice cream sundae. It's like these things are like a cherry on top. And what's wild is the more that I've gotten to know him and the more I've grown up in him, now my goal is how many people can I help? How many people who can't help themselves? And now I get competitive with how much am I giving? How many people am I able to help pay their rent? How many people can I help get out of student debt?
As far as I know, you did have some challenges in your life. So there was an incident where your former boss tried to sue you. What was that about? As a serial entrepreneur, I'm always trying to evolve. Having great conversations with other high performers is one of the best ways to grow. Not only in business, but also in spirit, health, and relationships. This is Svencast. Listen, grow, repeat. I'm not very religious, but so it's interesting for me to, let's say, learn about the perspective of someone who's religious. So how is, let's say, in your case, if I may ask that, Jesus preventing you from, for example, wanting to buy the newest car all the time or the newest watches or whatever you think it's cool?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've had to wrestle with. I know it all comes back to identity. So I know positionally that I am a son, that I am loved, and that I am completely accepted for who I am and who I've been made to be. So I know every day when I start out, I am already whole. So when I look into the face of Jesus, when I talk to him, when I get to know him through his word, through the Bible, I know that I'm already made complete and that he is the thing that gives me the source of life, that all these other things are not a source of life. They're not evil. They're not intrinsically evil in any way. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying the world is, all this stuff is evil. It just doesn't make me more. I am already the most that I can be in my being. And these other things it's like having an ice cream sundae. It's like these things are like a cherry on top. And what's wild is the more that I've gotten to know him and the more I've grown up in him, now my goal is how many people can I help? How many people who can't help themselves? And now I get competitive with how much am I giving? How many people am I able to help pay their rent? How many people can I help get out of student debt? And it starts now. I'm not even looking at income numbers anymore. I'm looking at outflow numbers into giving. And it's completely shifted my realm of I'm here to be like a conduit. Like if I get wealth, and I deeply desire to grow in wealth and to understand that and to have multiple streams of income flowing through my life, but not for the new Bentley so that I can pay 10 more single mothers rent for them or buy their house outright. How cool would that be? You meet somebody and you're like, I'm going to pay your house off and just not even a sneeze and just do it and set them free. Anyways, that my goals have shifted in knowing Jesus, all he does is give. Well, that's who I am then. And that's my center. It's not on some object. So hopefully it's not too crazy deep or totally out there.
Don't feel bad about it. It's a good concept. I'm just wondering how Jesus instilled the idea inside you that you are whole and perfect. How does that work?
I'm not saying I'm perfect, right? Because circumstance in life will show very different. But knowing him because he's perfect, it drives me to that, to know that if he says that I'm accepted in the Father, if I'm accepted in who I'm made to be, then I'm accepted. That's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. So if I settle that in my heart as I spend time with him, it's like, it's wild. Cause like you invest into that time and in knowing him, and then all of a sudden it just flows out of your life. Something called grace that just comes out of your life when you spend time with him, right? When you spend time with certain people, you overflow who they are in your life. That's why the saying is birds of a feather flock together. You are who you hang out with. So if I hang out with him and he says that I'm accepted through his word, then that's the truth. Whether my life is trying to show me different, it all has to come back to, again, some sort of foundation core of truth, if that makes sense.
Okay. So he's kind of saying that in some Bible text. Is that?
Yeah. So right? in the Bible, it says you are accepted. Like, I love you. You are loved. And I have made you, when you get to know Jesus and you lay down your old life, my old identity, and say, I want your identity, who you say that I am. He says, I will give you a new spirit. You will be born again. So you go through that born again experience, and now you're operating on a completely different level. Rather than living out of the flesh and out of the soul, you're living out of your spirit. And we're made first as a spirit. And then usually people get it flipped, where it's like, well, I am my flesh. Whatever my flesh wants, I feed my flesh, and I have an insatiable appetite for whatever my flesh wants. And then we try to tame the soul a little bit. Like, I'm going to be psychologically a better person, and I'm going to try to tame that flesh. But really, we're designed to live from our spirit that gives us identity first. That feeds into your soul, and your soul prospers. And then your flesh, you can have discipline in that area, and not give into all the stuff that, distractions that the flesh wants every single day.
Yeah. The funny thing about the flesh is that it craves things that might be nice short term, but detrimental in the long term. This is like the craziest thing about that. Like, my favorite example is food. I think I'm very disciplined regarding what I eat, but at the same time, I'm craving like all the stupid shit all the time. It's weird.
Same. I'm the same way. I was a wrestler for like 8 years of my life, and I literally abused my flesh by not eating, right? By saying no to foods. And then as soon as I stopped wrestling, I'm like, I can eat whatever I want. And I live on a college campus where they feed me as much food as I want. I'm not saying no to food anymore. And now I have to, once I turned 30, I was like, oh shoot. Now I have to either work out 10 times as hard to keep looking the way I want to do, or say no to a little bit more sugar here and there and less fats in my life. So I totally get it. It's like that, that whole thing of Oreos, that whole sleeve of Oreos tastes amazing in the moment, but now I'm going to have to spend the next 2 weeks working it off.
Cool. Yeah. So, as far as I know, you did have some challenges in your life. So there was an incident where your former boss tried to sue you. What was that about?
So when that guy, Jeff Usner, who I learned his internet marketing, I learned how to be a super affiliate from him, how to do marketing. He called me after he saw me on stage at a conference and was like, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I want to hire you. And I want you to move from California to Texas. So I went to work for him. I was like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I want to learn the skill, right? So I went to work for him. I got promoted through the ranks with him from being an affiliate manager, and then eventually was a media buyer for him, spending about $1 million a month on his web properties. It was awesome. I was learning a new skill set. Then he decided to move his company from Texas out to Pennsylvania, and he thinned the herd a little bit of our workforce. So half the people that were in Texas got laid off, and then the other half went to Pennsylvania. So we were left in Texas. I was offered a severance, and I took the severance. I asked for everything in writing that if I could have, and he brought his attorney into it immediately, who would not give me anything in writing. And so I had no income and not a whole lot of savings. So I started consulting immediately as a media buyer for others. Now, keep in mind, as a media buyer, if you're doing direct relationship media buying, you're not buying from Facebook and Google, you essentially hold the lifeblood of that company in your hands because you have all the relationships. So to not be like, I was literally like holding his testicles is kind of like what it was like holding all of what was important and near and dear. And he was very exposed in that moment. So I started consulting for a few of the companies that I was buying media from. And he did not like that at all because I was opening up new relationships for them. I was getting paid extremely well. It was like right before Thanksgiving, actually. I got hit with a cease and desist letter from them. And then they pulled the severance package from us, which at that point it was like 10 grand or something left in it. In one day, I think we lost about $35,000 of income a month. So it was like, it completely hit me upside the head. And they asked that I not work online for 5 years, that I don't do anything with internet marketing for 5 years, according to something that they said I signed, and they never produced it. That was my very first thing. It was the only thing I wrote them was, can you please send me any documents that I signed? And they never sent them. They said, oh, we're moving. We lost him in the move. So, but they also reached out to all of the people I was consulting with and said, if you do business with him, we will pull all our business from you. Do not work with him. And one of them was offering me a full-time job at the time that would have paid very well. So it was like in one moment, everything that was going really well was not going well at all. And it was hard because it was a slap in the face too. I mean, this guy was like family. We did family dinners with him. They were, they were really good friends. And then all of a sudden it was, you don't talk to me, you talk to my attorney. And I have not heard from him since, other than seeing him at one event. It was like an affiliate summit East. And it was really hard for my wife. If anybody's married, your spouse wants to protect you. And my wife wanted to go mama bear. We had a 2-month-old baby at the time. So it was hard. Yeah, it was intense.
And what did you do about that?
So I immediately, as soon as it happened, you have a choice, right? You fight or you let it go. And knowing what you're coming up against, knowing that he has a multi-million-dollar company and his own personal attorney, and I don't have that, I decided I do not want to get tied up in two ways. Financially, I don't want to get tied up into a lawsuit. And then emotionally, I'm not going to ride that roller coaster. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be tied to somebody like that emotionally for any more. So I immediately forgave him and just let it go in my own heart. Like, you know what? It's not worth it. Like, you're not worth the headache of me just staying tied to this thing after over $10,000. I'm worth way more than that. I'm not going to fight to try to pull that back. I mean, how much would I have to spend to get it back? And just to be right? No way. I'd rather be free than be right. So I chose freedom. It took my wife about 5 years to get to that same place of forgiveness. And you know what? Screw it. I'm not even going to give you more mental thought. I'm just going to go in a different direction and pursue growing our income in some other way. So that's what we did about it. We let it go. Didn't push it anymore. And I'm very happy that we did that, because I can be emotionally free. I can think of the guy's name. I can say the guy's name and not, have that knife turn in your heart. We're like, man, just screw that guy. Like, how dare he?
How did you
be totally free?
How did you manage to forgive him? I mean, someone who has done things like that, who kind of backstabbed you, and that sounds very disappointing. How can you even do that? Like, was that like also a Jesus thing, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's 100% it. It was a Jesus thing. If I can be forgiven, if Jesus can look at me and forgive me for my life, then why wouldn't I be able to do that for somebody who just owes me money? Why wouldn't I be able to forgive that? So it was more of like, Jesus set the standard for me. of what real forgiveness, over the top, lavish forgiveness looks like, why not extend the same thing to other people? And, I didn't deserve forgiveness. He didn't deserve forgiveness. This other guy, Jeff, he didn't deserve forgiveness in the least bit. But now that I'm learning and growing even more and knowing God, it's like God's a God of justice as well. So he brings justice on situations. And I would rather, there's a verse in the Bible that says the battle belongs to the Lord and justice is mine. Revenge is mine, says the Lord. I'd rather have that guy deal with God. He's a lot bigger and badder than I am. Not that I'm going to outright curse him, but when you sow, there's a verse in the Bible that says, whatever a man sows, he will surely reap. God will not be mocked. So when somebody puts themselves in that position and they're sowing seed into deception, into theft, like, you got a whole world of hurt coming on your head. And it might come emotionally. It might come to your family. It might come to your business. I know for a fact his business is not what it used to be, and he lost a lot of money. So that wasn't my doing. God does it on a way bigger scale. So I was learning now. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not just let it go. It's like, let it go. And then you're like, okay, God, you take the rest. You do what you're going to do, because you'll do it way better than I could and on a way bigger scale.
I see. Yeah. It's like, so for me, being the non-religious person, I'm thinking in terms of, okay, it sounds like outsourcing.
Yeah. Yes.
Like outsourcing the revenge, letting God do it and having faith in somebody's going to handle it. And I think what's very smart about it is, because, this idea that if you're holding a grudge, if you're angry constantly, like that's like drinking poison and hoping someone else is going to die.
You're spot on.
That ain't happening. So, it's really for your own good. It's really for your own good, not to, let's say, not to constantly think about it and becoming angry and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
It's about freedom. Like, our whole life it's all about freedom, and we make decisions whether we make decisions for freedom or for bondage every single day. And sometimes making a purchase can be bondage, because now you think of, now I have mental overhead over this. Now I have, like, if you get a puppy, getting a puppy is not for freedom.
No,
you are immediately putting yourself into bondage when you do that.
Totally.
But you count the cost. I do have a puppy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's trying to get in, but they'll deal with him. Yeah. He's 4.5 months old, and I have 2 kids. So I'm in this season of bondage in a lot of ways, of being tied to something.
In the following episode of Svencast.
There's nothing logical about buying a luxury car. It's just not a logical purchase, but it feels so good.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
It's the perception of new is worth more than that's the old model. And marketing has done such an amazing job at obsolescence, convincing you of obsolescence. And, your 2018 Rolls Royce, it's not the 2020. Stop being so concerned with what you don't have. And start to be present and be thankful for what you do have.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode of Svencast again.